Hey, look at you. Glad you finally stopped doom scrolling. Before you venture back out into the depths of the internet, why not rest here and listen to the next chapter of our tale? When we last left off, our main character had decided that bleeding out on the school field was more bearable than finishing the last day of school. Honestly, fair enough. Let's check back in with him to see how that strategy's working out for him. Chapter 6 Hunted. The moment CJ closed his eyes, everything changed. The temperature of the summer day dropped immediately. The piercing agony that burned across his chest evaporated. The blinding sunlight was replaced by sudden darkness. The smell of smoke and burnt grass fled. CJ was no longer laying on the lawn outside the science building, but standing in the dark throne room. He was still wearing the clothes he'd put on that morning, but the injuries he'd sustained were gone. All the grogginess from the blood loss disappeared in an instant, leaving his mind clear. Blinking, CJ squinted into the sudden shadow until he could make out the details around him. Orbs of white light floated softly, bobbing up and down above sconces on the walls nearby. The soft light cast eerie shadows along the walls and floor underfoot, making him tense. CJ's eyes roamed his surroundings, scanning through the black bricks in search of some explanation. Why was he here now? Turning around, he found a familiar sight. Sort of. He recognized the archway that led to an outside balcony, but beyond it he saw a dark sky dotted with stars. CJ had visited this same place in multiple dreams, but had always been daytime before. This was new. Cautiously, he moved toward the archway, and was surprised to find that he was allowed to step beyond the exit. The balcony was almost a semicircle, and battlements came up to his chest on all sides. It appeared that the throne room was situated at the top of a tall tower. Creeping toward the battlements, he found himself looking down at a stomach-churning drop. The tower was taller than any building CJ had ever been on, at least several hundred feet above the busy fortress below. CJ spotted several torch lights, looking like tiny candles from such a height. In the distance, he saw what might have been a town or settlement of some kind, though it lacked the lights that the fortress possessed. A ghost town, maybe? Farther beyond that, the landscape was dominated by monstrous trees that looked like evergreens. Even in the gloom of night, CJ could see their sharp silhouettes pierce the horizon hundreds of feet up. Off to one side lay a large river that turned this way and that, winding out of sight. Past the river, he spotted a mountain in the gloom of twilight. The countless stars overhead made the landmark somewhat easier to spot. But once he looked up, CJ couldn't pull his eyes away from the spectacle. He had seen stars before back home, but never like this. It seemed that infinite pinpricks of light dominated the night sky, with innumerable colors to match. Perhaps it was just another trick of the eyes, but they seemed to sparkle against the backdrop of pitch-black void. It seemed too beautiful to be the waking world. A dream, then. But if he knew this was a dream, didn't that give him authority to change this world as he saw fit? CJ looked down at his hands and imagined holding the sword that the Guardian wielded against the Black Knight. Nothing happened. He tried several different things, but all attempts came back fruitless. Apparently, the dream didn't feel like giving control. Suddenly, a sound erupted from the throne room's interior, drawing his attention. He peeked back inside just in time to see a pair of massive double doors swinging inward on their hinges. A stab of panic carried him to the side of the archway, where he hid against the wall. In all the dreams like this he'd had the past few months, none had included people, which meant this was uncharted territory for him. From where he hid, CJ could hear the footfalls of someone entering the throne room. The sound of boots striking stone was accompanied by voices. One dripped with authority, but reeked of cruelty as well. The other seemed afraid to penetrate the silence.
Speak.
Commanded a strong, male voice. Its icy tone left no room for argument.
General Kane sends a report,
Said a voice that sounded somewhat serpentine. CJ peered around the corner of his hiding place outside to find two individuals now occupied the space. One man had taken a seat on the throne, and the second figure was now hunched on the floor, bowing to the first person. The man on the throne would probably be 6 feet tall when standing, with pitch black hair, donned in black robes. His face seemed all harsh angles, and even though he wasn't ugly, there was something about him that seemed wrong. The hunched figure was maybe at CJ's chest and wore a brown cowl that covered his face. He had on trousers and a shirt that had been stitched multiple times. CJ spotted olive green skin on his arms, and he could see a pointed nose sticking out from the front of the hood.
I don't want reports.
The man on the throne said coldly. I want results.
My apologies, Lord Vidal. The General regrets to inform you that his progress in the Western Offensive has been halted. The Guardians are reinforcing their position and rallying the support of nearby kingdoms. As it stands, he does not believe he possesses the numbers required to break through.
Vidal scowled, the expression chilling CJ to the bone. There really was something off about him. His skin was fair and his hair dark. His face made his age very difficult to guess, almost like he was a mixture of older and younger, but it was the eyes that CJ found most unnerving. They weren't shaped wrong or too far apart or too close together. They looked right, but they were wrong. But as CJ continued to stare at them, something changed. What had looked normal before now appeared as empty sockets. No, not empty. Worse. A black void was where his eyes should have been. They stared out at the world like a starless night sky, cold and emotionless.
Tell Cain this. I have suffered his failures long enough. If he cannot manage to break through that line and prove his loyalty, he'd better hope to never return here at all. Because if he does, I will see the life drain from his eyes. Can you manage that, Greppin?
The hooded figure paused for a moment as if frozen by the edge to those words. Then CJ saw the hood nod.
Yes, my lord.
Dismissed, Vidal said. His cold eyes followed the hunched creature out of the room. A few moments passed in silence, leaving CJ to examine the room. He wondered what would happen if he stepped away from his hiding place. Thus far, none of his visiting dreams had been occupied by people, which meant this was a chance to experiment. If this was just a dream, it shouldn't matter what he did, right? He wasn't in any danger. But if that was the case, why did he feel afraid? Swallowing his anxiety, CJ took a deep breath and stepped through the archway, waiting to be recognized. The man on the throne paid him no heed. Even in the eerie glow of the lanterns and the dim shadows they cast, CJ should have been easy to spot. Nervously, he willed himself to take another step. Still no response from the man seated on the throne. He took several more strides until he stood directly in front of Vidal, where the hunched figure had been. Still nothing. The man gave no indication that he saw the boy before him. It was bizarre. Maybe if the man couldn't see CJ, perhaps he could hear him. Hello? The boy's voice cut through the silence. Oddly enough, though, it didn't echo the way Vidal's and Greppin's did. Vidal stayed seated on his throne, and he continued to scowl at the room before him. There came a knock at the giant doors behind CJ, who whirled to face the noise.
Enter,
Vidal called. The blood-red doors swung inward, revealing a man CJ recognized. He wore dark robes that contrasted his pale skin, and he had on a hood that covered his head. It was the man who had appeared within the Ring of Fire, the one who'd ordered the Black Knight to kill him. What was he doing here?
Morul,
The man on the throne said.
I did not expect you to take so long.
CJ turned to fully face the newcomer as he strode forward. He stopped a couple feet before the boy and bowed low, dropping to one knee.
You may stand,
Vidal said. Morul stood up and stepped forward, inches from CJ. The boy hopped to one side to avoid colliding with the man from the field. Morul continued forward, completely oblivious to the boy's presence, just as everyone else seemed to be. CJ looked down and examined his hands. If these people couldn't see him, and they couldn't hear him, could they feel him? CJ gently reached for the man's shoulder, but his hand didn't stop. His fingertips slipped through the material of his cloak, disappearing inside without resistance. An icy sensation started where his hand passed through the man, making the boy reel back. I'm a ghost, CJ thought to himself. He really did die on that field, and now he was stuck in his own dreams.
I have troubling news, my lord,
Morul said. The words came out hesitantly, as if he feared to speak them, and he regarded the man on the throne as one eyed a dangerous predator. Vidal sat still, almost lounging as he leaned back. But even then, the cold stare of those empty eyes was enough to intimidate anyone.
I can't help but notice you're here empty-handed, Vidal said. Am I to assume that the boy escaped your clutches?
Morul's gaze flickered to the fire dancing atop the staff next to the throne. The view of the black flames gave him pause, but eventually his shoulders sagged and he nodded.
Not unaided, my lord. The Guardian intervened just as you said, but the misshifter was insufficient to deal with him. I brought through more reinforcements, but by that time he had already fled with the boy.
Vidal just nodded as Morrel spoke, leaning back farther and placing a hand on his chin in contemplation. It looked as though nothing the other man had said surprised him.
I surmised as much. The child lives, then? I cannot be certain of that, my lord. A hobgoblin slashed him with its dagger. Quite a nasty wound. He was on the brink even as the Guardian collected him and retreated to Gethrol. I would have gone after him, but others came to cover his exit. If it pleases my lord, I will find out.
Vidal cut him off with a wave of a dismissive hand.
I have other ways of learning if he survived. In the meantime, I have other matters for you to attend to. You are dismissed.
Vidal continued speaking, but his voice suddenly became murky. CJ could still hear him talking, but the words were beyond his grasp. A tightness had surfaced in his lungs, as if they were squeezed by unseen hands. Each breath he took required more effort than the one before. Suddenly, a pain erupted across his chest, and CJ dropped to his knees. He screamed at the agony, not caring if those in the throne room could hear him or not. He fell forward, barely having enough strength to keep himself up as his hands and knees dug into the rough stone beneath him. Now, breathing was out of the question altogether. He strived to take one, to steal any amount of air from the world around him, but it refused to relinquish it. The corners of his vision were growing dark, and the throne room began to fall away. What replaced it was a cold void, almost like the one Vidal hid behind his gaze. Everywhere CJ tried to look was the darkness that was slowly swallowing him whole. And just like that, he was gone.
As if dying once wasn't bad enough.
Well, well, well. Looks like you've fallen for the old end 2 consecutive chapters on a cliffhanger trick. Man, someone should really comment down below how despicable the writer is for doing that. If only there was a way for you to find out what happens before Chapter 7 drops next week.
Patience is a virtue.
Not right now, it isn't.
Oh well. If this is your last time I sneak my way into your recommended page, thanks for tuning in and giving me the privilege of your time. Until next time, I have been your host, Mr. John Author, and this has been Chris's Weekly Reading. Goodbye.